Well, where was the U.S. Civil War fought? I suppose the easiest answer to that is in the U.S. Yeah, having said that, let's take a look at where it was actually fought. And the topography, the geography of the battle is, or of the battles are really important. Um, United States, and of course, this is an overview. Um, the in 1861, the bulk of the population was between Boston and Richmond, pretty much like it is now. Um, and you've got these great big mountains out here, and you've got what looks like small mountains here. These small mountains here are no joke, and they're no joke because they go straight up and down, and the valleys are very narrow, and there's not many places where you can cross them. So while these look like very small mountains, the, they are actually harder to get through than these mountains out here, at least from a military sense. So these mountains divide this section off from this section, and this is called the Eastern Theater, and this is called the Western Theater. And then there's a great big river called the Mississippi River that runs right across here. And that divides this Western Theater off from what's called the Far Western Theater. And so the end result, therefore, is that you have three major theaters of the Civil War. You also have the fourth, and that fourth are the oceans. The North starts with a significant navy. It's certainly not the biggest navy in the world, but not by any means. But the Confederates start off with no navy. Nevertheless, the Confederates are going to come up with some very innovative ways to handle this lack of a navy, and they're going to get some pretty good ships, some built in England and other places, and they're going to do an okay job. Not, they're starting from ground zero, so just as the Americans were in the Revolution, but they are going to have some pretty significant things to say about naval warfare, and they're going to change how naval warfare is fought. Um, Now, so just to review, there's four regions. There's this core region, the Eastern Theater, where most people are, where most industries are, where most of the towns are and the cities are. And so that's really very important. And if you lose in the East, then you're going to lose in every other place. The Western Theater, of course, that region between the Appalachians and the Mississippi River, Western Theater. I think that was where the war was won. You could have an argument on that. The far Western Theater, militarily, is not terribly important. There's a significant battle fought there in 1862 called Pea Ridge. But it's important in another way, and we'll get to that in just a second. And then finally, that fourth theater, the oceans. So you've got four theaters, and they, because of the context, because of where they're fought at. The Western Theater is somewhat flat, and the far Western Theater is somewhat flat, and the Eastern Theater is not flat at all. The context in which people fight is going to change how battles are fought and the purpose why battles are fought. If we take a look right here, you can see that the Eastern Theater, which is just this tiny section here, stretching from Gettysburg down to Yorktown and to Petersburg, this is blood-soaked, huge battles all the time. It's the bloodiest battle ever fought in the Western Hemisphere. Gettysburg is, of course, right at the top of this. But it's a staggering number of immensely bloody battles are fought in here. And in fact, you're going to approach World War I conditions. This theater here, the Far Western Theater, wide open, that does not have as many big battles as does the Eastern Theater. But it doesn't, that's not to say it doesn't have big battles, though. I mean, Shiloh was a terrible battle. The siege of Vicksburg was terrible. The bloodiest per capita battle, bloodiest battle fought, depending upon the size of troops, is fought in a place called Murfreesboro. And so there's a lot going on here. And I would argue that the battles and the maneuvering that goes on here in Georgia um, probably won the war for the North. The North could stalemate or tie the Confederates here in the Eastern Theater, but in this Western Theater, That's where the North could actually win, and that's where they did actually win. And then, of course, you have the far Western theater. Now, you can just take a look here at the core region, the Eastern theater, and you can just see by the lines how many battles were fought here and how much maneuvering was done. Washington is here, Richmond is here, 90 miles in between them. 90 miles and a whole bunch of rivers. And that's going to shape these battles. The fact that you've got, you have to fight your way over these rivers some way or another. Otherwise, you just simply can't do it. The North simply can't do it. And if we take a look at the geography or the topography of Virginia, you see this is the Shenandoah Valley heading up here. You've got a nice passage along the foothills heading up in this direction. So as the South moves north, they move toward the urbanized, the industrial region of the North. Now let's say the North goes south, goes down the Shenandoah Valley, and doesn't go any place, just go out of the war. Same thing with battles in here along this ridge line. You follow that ridge, there's some sizable southern towns in this section. It just takes you right out of the war. So where the geography helped the South, it hurt the North in the Virginia region. And of course, you've got all these big rivers, and these are big rivers in here, and the complex rivers. So you've got a lot of places where you might have to cross two rivers at the same time. It's just really a mess. And from the northern point of view, marching over those rivers, if the other side's shooting at you, it's not so easy to get across a big river. This right here is the Chesapeake Bay. Then, since the North had a navy, they could control this. And you would think that they could maybe just come down this river and go up this big river here, it's the James, and just kind of take your way up to Richmond without having to fight your way across. Well, that was tried in the summer of 1862. It didn't work out very well. And so, the advantages to control the Chesapeake Bay and these big rivers gave the North there was that as a Northern army came south, it could be supplied. So the Northern Navy could keep troops in here fed, which is really important, particularly if you're a soldier. The Western Theater, again, you can see that there's a fair amount of battle here. Truthfully, not quite like in the Eastern Theater, but you've got the Ohio River, which turns into the Mississippi River here. You've got the Cumberland River that just goes along right here. And then you've got the Tennessee River, which comes down like this and over like this. These are big, broad, deep rivers. And since the North has the Navy, you would think, we can just take our Navy down and put our troops wherever they want, which was almost true. Of course, that doesn't mean that when you get your troops off the ships that the Confederates won't be sitting there waiting to shoot them. As Grant would find out in Shiloh, you can have a lot of naval strength, and the other side may not agree with you landing troops, and it can get pretty bloody. Here in the Mississippi River, where you got another huge, broad river, perfect for big naval boats to go up there. It's going to take the North about over 2 years in order to finally get through the Mississippi River. So just the fact that you've got lots of rivers and the Union has a big Navy, the North has a big Navy, it may or may not mean a whole bunch. And finally, here in the Eastern Theater, and as I said, far Western Theater, and as I said here, you've got some campaigns out here. Right there is Pea Ridge, which of course is the key battle that keeps Missouri from falling into the hands of the Confederates, which would have flanked Illinois and could have caused all kinds of trouble. You've also got an interesting, not very large, but an interesting campaign here in New Mexico. But the far Western Theater, despite its lack of military activity, was really important because it belonged to the South. And this is where the South had its food, its beef, its corn, things like that. As long as the far western theater was connected to the west and eastern theaters, Southern troops could have food. So it's going to be up to the North to cut off the far western theater from western and eastern theaters and cause the Southern soldiers in the two more important theaters to starve. So this is no minor thing at all. And you've got to do it. You've got to stop them from taking these rivers and from taking the cattle from one side of the river, of the Mississippi River, to the other. And that in and of itself is a major effort. So in any case, look forward to the next video, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.